Hey everybody, this is BoatsDon'tSink, Connor. Today we have Nazarick, Tomb of the Undead, also known as Overlord. I don't know still really why they changed the English name, but I assume some licensing issue. Yeah, set just came out in English over the weekend, so I've got my top 10 here for you guys. This one's a bit of an interesting one. It's one of the oldest sets that we've had released in English lately. I believe it came out like very end of 2018 in Japanese, so not quite 2 years ago. And I recall back then when it came out, a lot of people, a lot of the North American players were complaining about how just like oppressive it felt, right? And I think now anyone playing Japanese format would laugh at this deck if you brought it to a tournament, but I had already stopped playing Japanese format by that point, so I never really got to experience how it felt to play against this deck, and I have to say, after playing it all weekend, it's something. I think this deck is a bit underrated in English by a lot of the community right now, so yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. This top 10's a little weird. Number 10, we have Ruler of Death, Ainz. This is the trial deck level 3. It's on play from your hand or by the act effect of 7th Floor Guardian Demiurge. Look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose one, put it in your hand, put the rest in waiting room. So typical, check top 3, add 1. And then it has a climax combo. So this is the Demiurge. It's a 2-1 level assist. And then if you're level 3 or higher, you can pay 1 and sack it to summon the 3/2 from your waiting room. Pretty typical stuff. Not really why this card is on my top 10 list, but something noteworthy anyway if you're playing out of the trial deck or whatever. The climax combo is kind of why this is on here. It's on attack, you pay 2, discard 2, and send the climax to your waiting room to send all of your opponent's level 3 or lower characters in the center stage to your opponent's waiting room. So it's basically a board wipe. And we don't see these... excuse me. We don't see these very often in Weiss. And there's a couple of nice things this does for us. Unfortunately, it's not the best out there. A lot of times you'd rather just have a bounce or whatever. You usually don't need to blow up your opponent's entire board. But sometimes you do, and this guy can do that. And it's on a good climax trigger anyway. You'll see when I talk about decks, which I promise I will do. I know I've got a lot of deck videos backed up right now. Building the deck, you kind of just care about this trigger. So there's not really much of an opportunity cost to playing this guy as, oops, I have an answer to your board, right? And some of the things you can answer, things that you either can't attack into or might not want to attack into, right? So Rider is stopping you from frontal attacking. If you blow up their board, now you just get direct attacks. And since you're sacking your climax off, your direct attacks are only going to be for 2 or 3 instead of 3 or 4. So your numbers aren't even that bad. Things like Reflect. If you attack it, it deals damage to you. Well, if you blow them up, they're not dealing damage to you. Maybe your opponent just has like one lane you can't beat, like Futaba. You get to blow up their whole board, and then just swing freely. And the nice thing is that he also, like against Futaba, right? You're declaring the attack into Futaba, but then you're blowing up their board, so you're not actually gonna crash into the Futaba at all. And since it hits your opponent's entire center stage, it's not choosing. It will get around things that can't be chosen by effect, which there aren't a ton of in the meta right now. The biggest time you see that is like Attack on Titan with the Armin assist, or against like Yami and Tolover. There's nothing really else that can't be chosen in the meta right now. We might see ReZero some like Maids builds in like February or March whenever we get that set. The extra booster go back towards that, but for now that's not really super relevant. But if you do find yourself playing against one of these decks where their cards can't be chosen, you're gonna blow them all up anyway. So it's good, like, especially against Toloveru, for the time that you play against it, right? They have anti-damage. So you normally can't remove Yami to stop anti-damage, but since this just blows everything up, you do get to dodge it, which is pretty nice. So it's just a cool like catch-all answer that's low opportunity cost, and I think the low opportunity cost is what really makes this card worth considering. And in this deck we do have a lot of things that the top three can help with, right? It can help find more healers, it can help find the climax, and there's some pretty good events in this set, so we'll see some of those as we go further into this top 10. Like our number 9. Number 9, we've got Shooting Star. So this is one of the events in the set. It is at rare. Unusual for an event, but we've got a couple of them in this set. It's a 3/3. Choose one of the following effects and perform it. Deal 2 damage. Choose up to 2 cards in your clock, put them into your waiting room, put this card into your memory. Or, choose one of your characters and it gains plus 8,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. The last mode not as relevant, but the other two modes kind of take what we've seen on some other cards and combine them into like a modal effect, which, spoiler alert, if you've kept up with what's going on in Japanese meta, people really hate Data Live right now because all the modal effects are really good. And I think this card's pretty good. It's not Data Live good, but it's good. Especially since like a lot of times these burn effects on events, you're seeing like 3/3 deal 4. 4 is a little much. These cards never see play in decks. Deal 2 is a lot more reasonable. Deal 2 is like, oh, I get to, extend my finisher reach a little bit. And pay 3, discard 1, deal 2 is not absurd. We've seen discard 2, deal 1, and pay 2, discard 1, deal 1 see play before. So pay 3, discard this event is not unreasonable for something to see play. And heal events we really just haven't gotten a whole lot of in English, period. We got Resurrection in Goblin Slayer, which was pay 4, discard 3, like itself and 2 other cards, to heal 5. Very expensive, good card though. And then we've seen like Hanako, and there's the Alicization one, that both are like counters that heal 1. So having this event that heals 2 is something that not really many other English decks can do right now. And it's a pretty good thing. We've obviously got like Sayaka's Wish. Did we ever get any other Sayaka's Wishes in English? Yes, the Lovewing Bell. There's Lovewing Bell as well. Those are like heal 1 events. But having this as a 3/3 heal 2 is fairly cost efficient. It's not amazing, but it's pretty cost efficient. Unfortunately, you can't loop it, and I think if this did not send itself to memory, I'd have this ranked a lot higher than number 9. Because we'll see there is a bond to it, actually. This right here, Strongest Magic Caster Eins. It's on play, discard 1 to add Shooting Star from Waiting Room back to hand. And then it also has on play, discard 1 to add Fallen Down back to hand, which is another event. It's not as good. You can pause and read it if you'd like. I'm not going to talk about it. But Shooting Star it gives you modal options, right? You can finish, you can heal. If for some reason you have a clock kick on board and you just need it to get big enough to clock kick your opponent's Futaba, yeah, you can do that. You have that option now, and your opponent's probably not killing it on their turn either because it's chilling at like 19-5 or whatever. Yeah, maybe the third option is relevant sometimes, but the first two options giving you the choice, right, between sustainability or finisher power, and the event being bondable off of a character makes it a lot more accessible, right? Normally events you have to play 2 to 3 copies of to draw into consistently. But when it's on a character that you can brainstorm and grab, or like grab off of a comeback trigger or whatever, it makes this event a lot more accessible. So yeah, overall I think it's a pretty good card. And perhaps there's a build that abuses it. I've mainly just been using it as a tech card that gives me good options. But number 8, we have another event. This one is Wise King of the Forest. This is a 2/1 event. It's if you do not have a Raven Black character, it cannot be played from your hand. Choose up to 2 characters in your opponent's center stage, return them to his or her hand. So this is good against a lot of things. You can play it at level 2, right? So it hits standby targets. It hits things like Rider, once again, that you just are problematic and need to remove. It hits minus soul things, since you're doing this main phase. Eins, the board wipe, can't really deal with minus soul as well, because they get to resolve before him. Yeah, so you get to bounce minus soul things, like Priestess, Emilia, Siege. It gets to deal with just problematic early plays in general. If your opponent goes like Chica, summons Yo, you get to bounce their Chica and their Yo. So now they have to pay like another 3 stock and discard their Yo. I guess they just discard the Yo to Rico realistically, but they do have to pay all the stock to get them back into play, and you just get like direct attacks or whatever. So you get to answer pretty much anything. A lot of early plays you might not want to bounce because then your opponent gets to heal again, so that's kind of iffy, but in general, it's just like making your opponent pay stock to play down like a character that they're not getting a whole lot of value out of. 2/2s especially is pretty solid trade when it's only like 1 stock in a hand, or yeah, a stock in a hand for you. It does have the downside of you have to have a Raven Black character. There are not a lot of Raven Black characters in the set. Thankfully, some of them are good enough that this, I don't think, is a huge downside. Fitting yellow into your deck as a whole is a little harder than fitting enough Raven Black characters, I think. We have the 0, the coin flip double rare card is actually quite good. I think it's a very plausible 4 of in just a lot of builds of the set. So it's possible that just fixes for the event on its own. There's also a 1-0 combo that I think is not bad at all. Maybe one of the options for the set if you're not a fan of Standby. It might be the 2nd best level 1 combo, 3rd best, I don't know for sure. I haven't done enough testing with it. There's a 1-1 that's a 7500 2 soul and it has Encore. I think that card's actually really good. Again, fitting yellow is kind of awkward, but in those builds, I think that card's very good. And since it has Encore, like if your opponent kills it, you just go, okay. Like they early play and then kill it, you go, okay, cool, I'll Encore it, and now it's my condition for my event. Right? There's also an early play that's 2 or less climax early play. It's a 10-5 that checks top X on play, which is the number of characters your opponent has. So it's gonna dig at least a few cards. 5 if your opponent has a big board, right? So I can dig for the event as well and be the condition for it. So I don't think meeting the condition is actually the biggest problem. I think the fact that a lot of decks don't really care to play yellow might be the bigger problem. But the event, we don't really have any of these like bounce events in English. The big one was like Tolovru Volume 2 in Japanese had one that I know a lot of people were hoping we'd get in English with Tolovru Volume 2, but that never happened. So this event is kind of a unique draw to this set. At number 7, I have Blue Rose Evil Eye. So this is one of the level 3 combos for the set. In my opinion, pretty much the best finisher the set has. On play it heals, and it has a climax combo with a gate trigger. When the climax is placed on your climax area, if it's in your center stage, choose one of the following effects and perform it. So again, more modal abilities. Maybe this was like the test run 2 years early for Data Live or whatever. I promise you'll if you don't know what Data Live does, you'll understand when we get to like April or whenever it comes out, and I get to do my video on that. First effect you can choose is if you have another blue or Raven Black character. So again, with the Raven Black condition, there's the good cards I showed earlier, or if you just have a second copy of itself, it fulfills the blue condition. So that's really easy, honestly. Again, fixing for blue in a deck is the harder part. You choose up to 3 cards in your opponent's waiting room, return them to your opponent's deck, and your opponent shuffles their deck. So you decompress them by up to 9. Second effect is choose 2 cards in your hand, put them into your waiting room. If you do, deal X to your opponent. X is the number of climax in your opponent's waiting room. So you get to choose, right? You either decompress them or you burn them out. This is really good against small deck states. The first effect, at least, really good against small deck states. If your opponent's like 1 climax and 4 cards, well, now they're 1 climax and 13 cards, and you probably just kill them. The other effect is good against kind of like medium-sized deck states. Maybe they have like 2 or 3 climaxes in waiting room. You get to like shuffle their characters back, like 6 characters back in, and then deal 3, and then swing into them. That could quite possibly kill them. It also heals though, and it's very resource efficient, right? So you get this sort of combination. We've seen both of these effects kind of. Ram, I looked on the card list, and all I could find as far as like shuffling cards back into your opponent's deck Obviously, we have like the Fumio-esque effects, where we have like the Arisa 3-2 in Bang Dream, the Rin 3-2 in Love Live, the Aqua 3-2 in Konosuba that shuffle your opponent's entire waiting rooms back in. The Ram is the only one I could find that shuffles like a couple cards back in. But that card saw a little bit of play in ReZero. That was usually overshadowed by Felt. And then the Rin 3-2 in Fate, I know saw a little bit of play a long time ago when the set had come out and Fate was playing stuff like this, where you would deal X based on the number of climax in your opponent's waiting room. Disgaea also has an event that does the same thing. Neither of them were super strong on their own, but the burn was also costed stock on Rin and etc. They're generally overshadowed in their sets. This set doesn't have a lot of other finishers, so I think this one's actually quite good. This one also heals. Neither of these others heal, so you're able to play like a sustainable end game off of Evil Eye, like healing and getting to push some damage, and then going for the 2-turn kill, because neither of these effects are really good enough as a 1-turn kill, right? See, I think this works a little better. I think the card's pretty solid, and being as light on resources as it is, there are a lot of other things you can put those resources into. The set has a slightly weaker Compass equivalent from Kantai called Freezing Spell. It has the Shooting Star event I showed. It has a 2-1 heal event called Adamantite Class Adventurer. And it has a rest counter that's a clone of the ReZero one. Pay 4, discard a character, rest one of your opponent's characters when you back up. So you can put all your resources into all of these things for more sustainability. Or more finishing power in the case of Shooting Star. Number 6, I have Beautiful Princess Nabe. This is a 0/0 1500. I showed this as an example of a Raven Black character you can play. If your stock has 2 or less cards, this gets plus 1500 power. And at the beginning of your opponent's draw phase, it says phrase on the card. Yes, it's supposed to say phase. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's level 1 or higher, you may return this card to your hand. This is an effect that we've seen a lot. Not a lot, actually. There's a couple sets that have it. JoJo's has the Doppio. Bunny Girl Senpai has the Nodoka. Bang Dream recently got a Kasumi that's a bit weaker, but also pumps power on attack. All of these see play in their respective decks, like, for the most part. Or if they don't, it's because they're playing like a runner instead, right? But these cards are quite good. And this one is even better because it's like if you play it turn 1 or 2 and you miss your top check, usually they just die. This one has the condition to be 3000 power if you have 2 or less stock. So early game, this card might just live anyway, even if you miss your top check. And if you hit the top check, then it's going to bounce back to your hand, and you can either play it back down, or you can hold it for the Raven Black condition of your event, or anything like that. Or just to clock it to get yellow, right? If you're playing yellow cards later on. So the card has some nice utility, but it's also just, it's a plussing 0 that might plus even if you miss the top check. Which makes it very consistent as far as like a turn 1 play or something like that. More so than the other coin flips we've seen. So I think that makes it quite good as a card. Probably a 4 of in a lot of level 0 lineups, just as your ideal turn 1 play. Number 5, we have Master of Great Tomb of Nazarick, Ainz. So this is our Ricky clone of the set, basically. It's on play, pay 1, put the top card of your deck into your clock. When it's placed on the stage from your hand, you may pay the cost. If you do, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 character from among them, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. We've seen this effect a couple times in the past, for example on Good Sound Sayokikawa and the Stage of Fate Karuko Hanayagi. Both of those are on death when they go from stage to waiting room. I believe this is the first one we've seen from hand to stage, which is, spoiler alert, a lot better. It especially has a lot of use in this deck because this deck does really want to play standby, I think. And this lets you fill your discard early with targets to potentially stand by. And it has a little bit of a complex setup at level 1 that you need at least a few different cards for. So this can help you dig for your pieces. Obviously not as good as just pay 1, clock 1, search. But being able to dig for pieces and fill your waiting room with standby targets at the same time, it's good. You know, you can't. You're happy with it in this deck. It might not. It probably wouldn't be as good in a lot of other decks. You'd rather just have the search, but in this deck, it does work quite well. It also has a nice second effect tied to it. It is a level 0 clock bomb, which is pretty cool. It's 500 power, which means it gets under like everything in existence. So anything that has like an on reverse or an on death effect, you can just remove. You can get rid of Nuisance Megumin, Inherited Magic Talent Sistine, Head of the Monsters Rimuru, etc. Anything where your opponent needs it to get reversed to get its effect, or like go to waiting room. You can just clock bomb it and they're not going to get the effect. It can't deal with 500 power things, because obviously it'll reverse them as well at the same time if they're on reverse. But guess what? Your Brainstorm in this set is on play. Give one of your opponent's characters minus 500. So between this and the Brainstorm, you can answer literally anything your opponent puts on the board that might have an effect it needs to deal with. So you can, the deck ends up having like a really good denial strategy at level 0, which is interesting. It's not something we have a lot of right now, and it's something that gives it some nice points. It stops your opponent a lot of the time from hand fixing, because a lot of these on reverse effects are like the Rize reveal top 3 effects, or the on death discard check top 4 Chieri sort of effect. That's mostly what you're seeing on death. A little bit of like the ReZero Memory Snow Bunny that searches. That's one that you definitely want to get rid of. And Ainz and Shaltir can actually both get rid of that. Since if Ainz crashes into it, it will get reversed, but he'll send it to clock before it has a chance to send itself to memory. So you have a lot of ways to just deny your opponent's setup and consistency as well, which makes this card quite good in my opinion. Alright, number 4, we have Resurrection Ritual Ainz, and this one, to people that don't know the set, is probably going to look like I'm crazy, because first effect, if you have 4 or more other Grotesque Race or Nazarick characters, which is most of the set, it gets -1 level while in your hand. And the second effect here, it combos with a Standby. When the Standby is placed on your Climax area, if this card is in your center stage, you may choose one of your other Grotesque Race or Nazarick characters and stand it. This is a Climax combo we've seen before. It has very rarely been actually good. No Game, No Life is pretty much regarded as not a very good set. Even Bang Dream kind of just only played this Taie if they were already playing 8 Standby anyway, and it wasn't like a huge part of their game plan most of the time. So, what makes this one good? A, it's not like 4,500 or 5,000 power. Standby decks often want to win board, and a 4,500 Gibril is not going to win board. A 5k Taie is not going to win board. A 7k Ainz might win board. Your like 6k plus 1k 1 Climax combos like Goblin Slayer and like Yun are tying this. So even they kind of have to worry unless they have extra ways to get power. And pretty much anything else is just smaller than Ainz outside of Aaron. Like Emilia ties it as well. Emilia hits a 7,000 without any backstage extra like pumps. But like the Rim from Memory Snow is going to crash into it. Shizu hits 7 as well, so that's another one that ties it. But all these are just like, they're losing board at best. And if Ainz has any kind of level assist behind him, or there's a level 0, that's when you play a Climax, return it to your hand, give a character 1,000 cross turn. That makes him 8,000. And it's actually part of what you usually use as the setup here. Where one of your 4 spots to early play him is going to be that 0. You play the Climax, return the 0 to your hand, give him 1,000, stand by to the now empty slot, and then stand to that and attack with it. Sort of a cool setup there. That's going to make him 8,000, which outscales all of these level 1 combos. So yeah, he's bigger, right? You're playing 2,000 backups in this deck anyway. So you have a lot better of a chance of winning board. That's one point toward him. The second point is that he just has better targets, which we can see here. I don't know that you're ever playing this 2-3, but he has a 2-3 12-5 with 3 soul as a target. Yeah. Uh, I don't know of any other sets that have that. He also has 5th Floor Guardian Cocytus, which is a really good card. It's a 10-5, and when it direct attacks, you get a stock. A clean stock for free. Every time he direct attacks. And guess what standby decks are usually doing? Winning board and direct attacking. And if you hit level 1 first, your opponent might not even have a full board, and you might just direct attack on the turn you combo. Wow. Wow, look at him go. This is just really good. It snowballs. That's why it's good. It snowballs quite hard. It's kind of weird. You look at it and it doesn't seem that powerful. It seems better than what most other standby decks are doing, but it doesn't seem that powerful. But it snowballs to a point that is hard to envision, honestly. Yeah. Number 3, we have Infinite Loyalty Albedo. This is an early play if you have 4 or more other characters. During your turn, it gets 500 power for each of your other Grotesque Race or Nazarick characters, most of the set. Especially the red and green, pretty much all the red and green. And on play, discard 1, put the top card of your clock into your stock. We've seen these 4 or more condition early play heals before. They've been good every single time. It's not new. Kaede was good. Kaede was sometimes 1 stock and healed. But didn't cost you an extra hand, right? Rumia was never 1 stock and healed. And she's just still also good. She's only 9k. And Mesmerizing Water Goddess Aqua is the one that this is closest to, right? It's healed a stock, 4 or more early play, 11,000 on your turn, 9 on defense. This is, as long as you have a full board, this is literally Aqua. And you should always have a full board in this deck. Aqua's a $60 card. Albedo probably won't be a $60 card, but they're the same card. For as far as it matters, they're the same card. This is one of the best early plays in the game, I think. Like, this profile is just, it's so easy, and I think Overlord honestly actually utilizes this profile a lot better than Konosuba, because Overlord is a deck that wants to stall out and play defensively. And just win board and sort of grind the opponent down and stay at level 2 for a long time, whereas Konosuba just wants, it just wants to nut all of your opponent and kill them from like level 2 or whatever. Overlord actually wants to, Nazarick, I'm going to call it Overlord, it's OVL. It wants to just sit here and sort of grind out the game, and you get to do that when you keep healing. You can make 2 really big lanes, and then if your opponent ever kills your 3rd lane, wow, now you have 4 characters on board on an open slot, you just play another healer to it, and you get to keep doing that for a while. And your healers might die, you just play 4, you keep looping them over each other. Like, it's easy heals. This condition is always live. That's the part that makes this card so powerful. It's just a 2-2. It's a 2-2 9k, which is vanilla, right, that heals to stock. And attacks for way bigger than 9k. So yeah, it's really good profile. I don't really think I have to explain why it's good. Number 2, this is a box topper. Breath of Mental Manipulation Aura. This is the ReZero rest counter. 2-1 2500 backup. Pay 4, discard a traded character. Rest one of your opponent's characters. We've also seen this in Fairy Tail, just in case anyone was curious. ReZero plays theirs. They make good use of it. They build the stock for it. For some reason, I've never seen ReZero play it as aggressively as I've been playing it in Overlord, and maybe that's just me playing ReZero wrong, or me not watching enough ReZero gameplay. But Overlord can actually just play this card like 2 to 3 turns in a row and not care. Which is why it's very good. Right? It's because of the Cocytus that stock charges when you direct attack. You build enough stock, more than enough stock, and if you're a standby deck, you're not losing board. Ideally. Hopefully not. And the snowball just takes you to a point where your resources allow you to play this card multiple times. With the current meta especially, like I said earlier, there's not many hexproof characters that can't be chosen. It's pretty much just Attack on Titan and maybe Tolovru. So this isn't missing on a lot of targets, and being able to rest a character before it gets to attack means you're also dodging a lot of combos that might happen, right? You're stopping things like maybe the burn 5 from Konosuba, or you're stopping a Yo that's going to reveal a burn on attack, or you're stopping a what else might be happening? A Rimuru that's going to burn 2, or a Rider. You can rest a Rider that hasn't comboed yet, so that you can frontal attack into it still. Memory Snow, Rim, right? You can stop a Rim from eating the bottom 5 cards of your deck. Lots of things that it's good against all of them. I think that's very valuable. And the card just... It seems very expensive, but it's not in this deck. It's just not. So it's a very good card. And, as I said earlier, the deck kind of likes to play the almost empty comeback triggers. And the Shaltir Brainstorm is a salvage Brainstorm. So you're able to recur this card quite easily, which is nice. There's also, as I said, like, Kakaitis builds a stock for it. There's also a level 1 combo in the set that is on attack, you stock a character from your waiting room. So, and it's a 6k. It's a powerful profile. Only reason I don't rate that card higher is I don't think this deck has a whole lot of ways to turn that stock into card advantage. Whereas Kakaitis is huge and is going to hopefully win board and live anyway as a plus. Ara's 6,000. That's about normal. It's on the upper end of normal for level 1 combos at this point. So he might not live, which means you have a lot of stock and not a lot of cards, and you have to figure out what to do with that. So I don't like that as much, but the set has ways to build the stock for this cost. That's not the problem here. My number 1 card, surprise. It might be weird to a lot of people that I'm rating this card at number 1. But I think this card is really... I think the optimal version of this deck. This might not be the most consistent version, and I'll talk about that more in my deck list video. Coming soon, trademark, whatever. This might not be the most consistent build, but I think that it is the best build when you take into consideration consistency versus power versus matchups and all that. And I think this card is the card that carries the deck on its back. It's what enables you to make use of all these other cards in the deck that are expensive or might just not quite be enough on their own. Right, like Ain's 2-1 would not be good in any other set where he's not summoning this card. Maybe he would be. He wouldn't be nearly as good, that's for sure. We've seen Gibril and Tai are not very impressive cards. But he allows you to just do all this stuff. He allows you to play a lot of early plays. He allows you to use the rest counter. I have another thing here. Yes, obviously, this is what you do, right? This is what you summon, this is what you stand. I don't actually recall. I do have another slide here. These are things you can do with them, right? You can brainstorm. You can just use that 1 stock to brainstorm every turn, and that's hand fixing and setting up your hand for like late game. You can get the counter, which allows, and then you use all this stock to just rest counter a whole bunch or play a bunch of early play heals. And in the end, if you ever resolve multiple Kakaitis, you're getting like 2 free stock a turn for almost no input. And if you're just winning board every turn, which you're not going to win board against every deck, you're going to have matchups that are a little harder, like Fujimi, where your opponent's board is also a standby board and it's actually probably bigger than yours. But in most matchups, your opponent's just not going to be able to deal with this card very efficiently. It snowballs out of control, and that's sort of the big thing of this deck. This is not the most consistent deck in the world by any means, but it is one that, when unanswered, is honestly quite oppressive to play against. These are my top 10. I'm still kind of really conflicted on this set, but I know I'm probably making it sound like it's broken, but most of these cards go in the same build. The standby deck I've been talking about. The yellow and blue ones sort of have their own deck. I think the Nabe can go in pretty much any deck. It's just a very good 0, and it's grotesque race trait, so it's on trait for everything. Evil Eye is also grotesque race, so you're not too worried about traits on those cards, which is part of why they're good. They're a little more splashable. But yeah, set is something. It's something. I have it here in B tier, mainly due to consistency and the. Not to say it's inconsistent. It's almost every game I've played with it, I've gotten the engine to go off. The problem is that there are other decks where it goes off every game, right? Like decks like Slime and decks like Bang Dream and decks like ReZero. You're doing the same thing every game for sure, pretty much guaranteed. Overlord does have a lot of moving parts early game, and it needs to build up resources while accruing those parts. So it can sort of miss a beat and fall apart. And if its board gets answered at level 1 or level 2, it doesn't have much of a backup plan. And I think that's what holds it back as a deck. And I think probably most of the community would agree that it's B tier, even if they don't think what it does is super high ceiling. Just because it does have all that modern utility and modern healers and finishers that aren't embarrassing. It does have more like a couple more finishers than what I listed in this video. But I do personally, I almost hesitated to put it up in A tier. I don't think it's quite there. I think putting it in the same tier as like Goblin Slayer and Fate is a little bit of a stretch. But I do think it is probably the very upper ends of B tier. Sort of approaching like it's Fujimi that trades the consistency of its board states for a lot more powerful of a game plan. I think is the best way to put it. So I think it sort of falls just a little shy of like Fujimi maybe. But yeah, and like I said, people are still going to yell at me for my A and A plus tiers, but I'm not changing those unless anything drastic happens. So we'll wait until tournament season to see how much those shift around. I don't think Overlord has invalidated any decks or made them shoot to the front of the meta. So yeah, I think that should pretty much be it. Thank you for watching. Follow me on Twitter. Check out the global community on Facebook. A lot of stuff that goes on there, mostly buying and selling, but also card reveals every day for Japanese format and the New English originals. We've got 2 of them coming out, so whenever they reveal cards for those, they get posted on there. Both of the Discords, again, daily updates, lots of discussion that goes on there. Both really good places. You can also find people to play over webcam. Obviously, COVID's made it hard to play at locals. Webcam and Tabletop Simulator people use on both of the Discords. And check us out on TCG Player if you're in North America. TCG Player is kind of weird otherwise. Yeah, check us out, Card Addicts. We do have Nazarick, Overlord, whatever you want to call it. TCG Player calls it Nazarick. Take note. We do have singles up. We should have more up. FedEx is being a pain, and it's been like a week and they still haven't delivered our package. So we should have more up soon. We have a little bit up right now. Check it out. Build the deck. It's not super expensive. If you're looking for a deck that's fun to play, like really strong, that is... It's unique, honestly. It's a good one. It's a cheap deck to build. So it's something I would definitely recommend checking out. I've been playing it. I played it over the weekend at our locals, and it's honestly like one of the more fun decks I've played lately. So I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys will too. Maybe we'll see it some in the spring season. So yep, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time.